Hey, what's up, everybody? We have a new YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe right now. Leave a comment on the video. Share it with your friends. It's also a podcast, 3 and Out, wherever you listen with me, John Middlekauff, Apple, Spotify. We have you covered, as well as thevolume.com. We have merch. Check out. I got 3 and Out hats right now. Thevolume.com. Search the podcast. Buy some merch. Okay, the Super Bowl is right around the corner. And my guy Stuckey from the Action Network, who's been coming on all season, betting games. We only have one game left. And it's a long time till late August and college football returns, and then early September when the NFL returns. So we got to bet the living hell out of this game. And every prop imaginable, we'll discuss, obviously, the game and some things he likes, some things I like, some flyers. Let's make some money because it's hard to get much better than the props on the Super Bowl. And listen, you got to scratch that itch because football is a long, long, long way away from returning, which is sad because season was incredible. It's so fun. And then it just ends. And then you just kind of count down the days till training camp starts. And then you get really excited. And then you realize no one plays in the preseason. So we got a while. So you better enjoy gambling on this game. I know I'm going to have an outrageous amount of prop bets. Deebo Samuel, I think I'm going to ride that one a lot of different angles. But before we dive into my man Stuckey from the Action Network, you guys know what I need you to do? Grab your smartphone, grab your iPad, go to your app store, download a little application called Game Time. They're the official ticketing app of this podcast. I said it the other day. I have some friends that are going to the Super Bowl that spent closer to 6 figures than $50,000. Tickets to big events are outrageous. Now, obviously, the Super Bowl is a little bit of an outlier, but concerts, comedy shows, obviously NHL games, basketball games, you want to go to the NCAA tournament. When I used to live in the Bay Area in Sacramento, the NCAA tournament would always come through. You get to watch multiple games. It's hard to beat the opening round or the round of 32. But buy a pair of tickets. You can go to Game Time, look at the venues where you live, find out what's coming near you, and when you do it, use the promo code JOHN, John, promo code JOHN, and get $20 off your first pair of tickets. I don't even need a thank you. Just hammer that promo code. Go enjoy yourself. Go enjoy a night out. Take your wife, take your girlfriend, take your mom and dad, take your son, take your daughter, and do something fun. Get out of the house and do it on me. Promo code John, Game Time. Download it now. Okay, Super Bowl week is upon us, and I, like my man Stuckey, am bittersweet because this game is probably the best game in the history of games to gamble on, given that you can make 7 million different bets. But it also means that there is not a football game. I don't even count preseason anymore. A meaningful football game till early September. That's a long time. Stuckey, Action Network. He's got a Super Bowl podcast coming out. The tourney's not that far away. No one is more locked into college basketball on a random Wednesday night than this guy. So, Stuckey, what's cracking, bro?
Don't short us a week, by the way. Late August, last week of August, we'll have like a game in Dublin in college football. But yeah,
that's true. College football.
It's regardless. It's depressing either way. I remember growing up. I think that this past weekend, when the Pro Bowl, I didn't see a highlight. I didn't watch any of the Pro Bowl. I used to love the Pro Bowl, and I think like it peaked. Like the peak Pro Bowl was 20 years ago this week when Peyton Manning, it was like the final score was like 54-51. Peyton Manning led like a 2-minute drill. The defense was trying at the end. The funny thing is they didn't get the onside kick, but the NFC didn't take knees because it's like, hey, it's the Pro Bowl. So Peyton Manning got a chance to they just chucked it in the end zone and the NFC picked it. But man, yeah, like the Pro Bowl, I mean, it's so bad now. But
bro,
yeah, it's depressing.
I saw highlights on Twitter this weekend of like a deep bomb to Randy Moss, which I would get. He had a Minnesota helmet on, so early 2000s. The defensive line was full go. The quarterback had to scramble. Randy's getting double coverage. The DBs fly into each other. honestly, it looked like a normal game. It's like the NBA All-Star game. You watched in the 90s, it was legit bad. It was like Michael Jordan versus Shaq or what, it was like, felt legitimate. Now, obviously, the money is so outrageous. None of these guys give a shit. I'm with you. I didn't see one snap, but it's not even football. It's flag football now. So, which is very on brand.
I mean, Sean Taylor, rest in peace. He lit up Brian Moorman. That 2004 Pro Bowl game, Ed Reed, my favorite player of all time, he blocked the punt, scooped it, and returned it. Like, it's a Pro Bowl, and this guy's going full gear to block a punt. But speaking of depressing weekend for me last week with the Ravens, which will lead into the Super Bowl, because that was not the team I saw all year. I don't know what their game plan was. They didn't run it. One of the least run-heavy game plans of any team in any game, regular season or postseason, of the entire season, and they were the most run-heavy team in the league. They didn't throw with play action. I almost feel like they galaxy brained themselves. They said, "Oh, the Chiefs are going to expect us to run," and they overthought it. And because there's no other explanation to what their game plan was. They just spread the Chiefs out and throw on them with Lamar. It's like your weakness versus their strength. The only other thing that is worth bringing up, because it's relevant to the Super Bowl, is that this happened with prime Brady as well. So I'm really curious what happens with the 49ers if they get behind. Teams feel like they're behind by way more than they are. So it's like you're playing prime Brady and you go down 7. Like, the Ravens were in that game the entire game. There was no reason to not run the ball at all. But you feel like you can't afford to potentially just run it a couple times and have to punt, and then they're going to score again. And you get this like panicked, we have to keep up, we have to throw, we have to be super aggressive because of who we're playing against. You would see teams just abandon their game plans against prime Brady, and you see it at times against Mahomes. And one of the biggest advantages the 49ers have in this game is obviously they're running their rush attack, their play action passing. So if they get behind, can they just stay, you know that Shanahan's going to have his script, but after that, can they just stay calm and relax? Because I feel like the Ravens played that game and called that game like they were down 20 ever since they went down 7-0. They thought they were down 20 the entire game. It was very bizarre.
It's funny. I heard Steve Young talking about, he's like, the crazy part about the playoffs is when you're a good team, if something goes wrong early, you look up and it feels like because it's just a 1-game situation. It's like your whole season is just, disappearing in front of your eyes. And everyone kind of freaks instead of, like you said, it's one thing. If you're the Niners, you're down 24-7. There has to be some urgency. But like sometimes you're down 10-0. It's 3 minutes left to go in the first quarter. It's like, fuck, everyone relax. We see fumbles, picks, missed field goals. Just take a deep breath. But that is not what happens. Now, the Monken, listen, I with you, like most people, hammered the Ravens in that game. The one thing different between Shanahan and most coaches is he will, when he's down a little bit, continue to run the ball. Now, he not only has a star running back, but he has this receiver that can also, they can do these hybrid college plays where they throw quick screens that are basically run plays. So they keep like some semblance of everyone taking a deep breath. Most teams, though, are like the Ravens. It's either like a true run or a pass. What were some of those pass plays? This Chiefs team, and this is where I get to the 49ers in this game, like start to finish. Even Andy Reid was asked about it on the opening ceremonies. He's like, it's not crazy there. Like, he's kind of, placating to the media, but like, it's not crazy they're favored. We've been up and down all season. They had an excellent season. Like, start to finish, the Niners were clearly one of the best teams. If not, beside the Ravens in that game, the best team throughout the season. So the thing with the Niners, I think that you question is like these last 2 weeks look a lot different than the entire body of work. Where the Chiefs, honestly, there are a lot of similarities with the last couple of weeks. They played in a lot of kind of gritty games. That's kind of how they've played. They just won those 2 instead of they lost some throughout the season. But the Niners did not look like the team that we've seen the last 2 weeks. I mean, their defense, Stuckey, was getting fucking shredded.
Yep.
That makes me nervous. I want to put an astronomical out on the Niners, but it's hard. Like, and I think they're going to win, but it's not like I was confident and cocky going into the they're going to kill the Lions or they'll win by double digits. Definitely the Packers. And then you got humbled and you got humbled quick. But when you can't stop anyone, especially in the run game, it's like having a bullpen that can't get an out. It's very, demoralizing. You feel just, it's like a slow, just, kidney shots on the ground. And the one thing with Andy Reid, this kid's got 24 carries in 2 of the last 3 games. This isn't, 2006 Andy Reid. He's more willing to run it, partly because Pacheco's one of their best offensive players, right?
Yeah, the way that the Chiefs run it, at least, is not might not be able to take a full advantage of some of the 49ers issues in their run defense, especially on the edge, right? You're going up against some really good rushing teams. The Chiefs middle of the pack, but they've been better of late. I think that now in this game, I played from a side perspective. I didn't play the total. I could see it being high. I think it's gonna come down to the start because it's gonna be a slow pace because I think both teams are gonna run it more. This 49ers play really slow. The Chiefs don't play particularly fast.
The 49ers do not have a hurry-up offense. Doesn't exist.
Yeah. So the pace will be slow. But from a side perspective, I did play so I made the spread around like 49ers minus 2.9-ish. And because you still have to look at the entire body of work. The Niners arguably should have lost the past 2 weeks, but they were the most dominant team in the NFL all season as a team that was, they were at one point, some odds makers had 4 to 5 points better than the next best team. Now, the last 2 weeks, they arguably should have lost both games, but in a way, it's like, all right, we survived that. We have 2 weeks. You have to remember this Chiefs team. They played a Dolphins team that was completely decimated, playing them outdoors in like frigid temperatures. You played a Bills team. Bills on a short week. They had no linebackers left, defensive back injuries. They were playing a guy that was gone on vacation, 60 snaps at linebacker, and AJ Klein, who just got abused. And then the Ravens come out with this bizarre game plan and just don't run the ball, don't throw a play action. So the Chiefs still have, the wide receiver room isn't great. They've kind of shrunk who they throw it to. They're leaning on the run. It's like, we're just going to throw it to Rice. We're just going to throw it to Kelsey. So they kind of cut a lot of fat off their offense, but the tackles are still an issue. And, the defense is good, but this is a bottom 5 defense against the run, a bottom 5 defense against play action passing, and you're going to give Kyle Shanahan 2 weeks to prepare for that. So I played the Niners first half money line. I show a little value in the number, and what I'm scared about for the 49ers would be, I think anything that can happen late it potentially favors the Chiefs. We'll start with special teams. You would trust the Chiefs kicker, right? If you have big kicks late in the fourth quarter, You're going to trust Butker over Moody. Defensive second half adjustments. You would trust Spagnuolo over Wilks. Wilks, people talk about his adjustment last week. The Lions still had a chance to score. All he did was just play more man. And we'll see how much man he plays here because, Niners play a lot of quarters, cover 3, which Mahomes has historically done very well against. But there's not much else the Niners will do from a adjustment perspective defensively. They're always going to have a 4-man front. They're going to have their 2 linebackers back a little bit who are excellent. And then they can just change up the coverages a bit in the back end. But Spagnuolo is capable of making more drastic changes. And this Chiefs defense has allowed under 4 points per game on average in the second half over the last 8 games. You got to remember last week they won in Baltimore. They didn't score a point in the second half, and they still won. Granted, they got some red zone turnovers, but their defensive adjustments have been great. And then for as good as Purdy's been, this guy's still, how many starts does he have under his belt for a Super Bowl? If you have Mahomes who gets the ball late, right, down 4, versus Purdy who gets the ball late down 4, you're going to trust Mahomes to go down the field and get it done. So I think the Niners are the better team. I show a little value in the number, but I played first half money line. I think their script will be excellent. I think in a way, Shanahan's always going to do what he's going to do, but seeing what the Ravens did against the Chiefs, I think just reinforces even more. You have to throw with play action. You have to run the ball. Well, that's kind of the crux of the San Francisco offense. So I think they'll have a ton of success on the ground, be able to sustain drives. And then it's going to come down to, how big of a lead can they build? What are the second half adjustments from Spagnuolo? And then can you avoid Mahomes getting the ball late and going down the field and scoring? And then you hope that the kicker disadvantage doesn't hurt you. But you're right. And I don't think Shanahan will panic. It's just not who he is. Now, granted, you're usually the better team. And that's one of the reasons why Shannon's usually conservative. And he said this,
like on
fourth down, he's like, we're usually the better team with better players. We don't have to be as aggressive on fourth down. So does his mindset shift a little bit if they're down in the second half? But I trust him more than any coach to stick to the game plan and completely exploit what Kansas City's primary weaknesses are, which is defending the run, against play action pass. The difference between play action and not play action on the Chiefs, they go from a top 5 to a bottom 5 pass defense. So Niners can establish the run, throw with play action even early. I think they're going to have a ton of success on offense, but I do worry a bit about those 3 phases in the second half, the Spagnuolo adjustments, the Mahomes late factor, and then just, big kicks late. I would tend to side with Kansas City. So I played the 49ers first half money line was the first bet that I made.
One thing with the 49ers offense is like a lot of their big plays come on they're not bombs to Randy Moss. These are shorter plays that the guys break tackles. Chiefs easily are one of the better tackling teams. I mean, all their secondary is a very physical group. So like a lot of big plays that come from Deebo, that come from Kittle, Juwan Jennings, even Ayuk will break tackles and lead to an explosive play. Maybe a 15-yard gain turns into 45-yard gains. And that's an area that the Chiefs are they have to be one of the more physical / better tackling teams in the NFL. You could argue the best. And you've seen it the last couple of weeks. They just tackle well in space. All their DBs, there's always been something early on with the 49ers teams, with Harbaugh, and then early on with Shanahan. Every guy on the team could tackle, and it's such a huge advantage. Like, you just have none of your DBs are, wussies out there. They're willing to fucking throw it around. The Chiefs have that. The 49ers, like Ward will tackle, but like Ambry Thomas, some of the other guys can just be a little hit or miss. They're just not great. Yeah. That's not Justin Reed feels like he's one of the better tacklers in the league right now. So, and definitely from a physical standpoint. So that's an area, we've talked about this before. The 49ers dominated the NFC, right? They beat the crap out of the Cowboys and the Eagles. And then in games that they should have lost, they just beat in the biggest moments against the Packers and the Lions. Like they beat in the Rams, they beat them all. But they did struggle against physical AFC teams, right? Ravens worked them on that Christmas night. Before Flacco showed up, the Browns beat them at home, and the Bengals, before everyone on the Burrow got hurt, kicked their ass. So I mean, and the Bengals, when healthy, are just a physical, tough, old school team. That's one area that like the Chiefs are like that. That's what's weird about this Chiefs team, right? They're really wired more like the AFC North teams for the first time in this Mahomes era, where they've always been this sexy offense. I was looking, they have the number 2 or 3 scoring defense in the league, and the Niners, who have always been a defensive operation in their good team, previously with Shanahan, with Garoppolo, and then Harbaugh, are one of the top offenses in the league scoring-wise, because their quarterback's thrown a bunch of touchdowns this year. So it's kind of a lot different from the matchup we saw last time, where the Niners were working the Chiefs. We're shoving them around in that Super Bowl, and then they just imploded. But the Niners aren't built like that team, because their defensive line, that's what makes me nervous about this Niner team, is like their defensive line just isn't that good right now. And so that's a concern. And if your defensive line isn't good and that's the way you're built, shit. I mean, everyone's like, oh, the Chiefs receivers. Yeah, they're not as dependent on those guys anymore.
Yeah, no, the Chiefs are like an AFC North team. No, you brought up 2 really interesting points. One, just that Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl brings up the point, don't panic. The Chiefs were down 20-10 with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, 131-20. But the other thing is that the Chiefs 49ers game from 2022, Mahomes went bananas. We threw for like 450 yards. They put up 43 points. I'm curious to see what coverages. There's 2 things I'm really interested to see: what coverages Wilkes runs, and then does he go more man early? Now, granted, this Chiefs offense is nowhere near as explosive as that one. And then on the other side, does Spagnuolo blitz? I mean, he's known for his blitzes. He's known for bringing pressure, but Brock Purdy, number 1 in the NFL in touchdown passes, passer rating, yards per attempt against the blitz this year. He's been phenomenal. So does Spagnuolo blitz? And that might be one of the adjustments he makes to the half. Like if he wasn't blitzing, does he try to bring more exotic blitzes, or does he try to throw Purdy off early, in his first Super Bowl? So I'm really curious to watch that. But I was going to bring up the point that you also just raised. We mentioned this. We said when we were talking about the Ravens 49ers game, said, would this change anything with how you view either of these teams. I said no, but it will be a huge talking point if the Niners lose this game. The AFC's success over the NFC, specifically against the 49ers all year. So it's certainly a question. And you could always fall back on the fact that it's just Mahomes is an underdog. I mean, I'm kind of a hypocrite in a way because last year I said to you here on the show, I said, you have the greatest quarterback on the planet as an underdog. How are you not going to take it? And so I bet the Chiefs is an underdog last year in the Super Bowl, but I'm not here. I'll look potentially to bet them live if they get behind. But he's 10-1-1 against the spread as an underdog. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But
he hasn't thrown. Has he not thrown an interception?
Doesn't even have a turnover-worthy throw in the postseason. They've really cleaned up their offense, but they had 2 drives versus Baltimore and then did nothing. And you have to remember that the Bills and Dolphins were decimated on defense, like just injury-wise, especially at the middle of the field. And Mahomes put together, I mean, some of the throws he had to Kelsey on the first 2 drives against Baltimore, that's just Mahomes. Like, that's just the brilliance of Mahomes. It's going to be, there's just no defense for that. The 49ers at least defend the middle of the field very well. They have great linebackers to defend Kelsey. The counter to that, though, is Kelsey just goes for 10 and 100 every single playoff game.
I know.
But I will mention, this is just
to me they got that late 90s Chicago Bulls thing. Scottie Pippen can barely walk into the arena, and then all of a sudden he's locking down someone on defense and he scores 20 points and they win the champion. It's like, I don't care what Kelsey looks like now. Once you get in the playoffs, you just got to assume he's in peak form. Yeah,
like I show a little bit of value on betting his unders, but like I don't think, do I really want to do that? Probably not. I will say a good.
Do you think he has MVP value at 12-1?
It's hard. You go back over the past 20 years. A running back hasn't won it since 96 when Terrell Davis won it, but I think that this is probably the best chance for a running back to win it in McCaffrey, because I think he's going to get a heavy workload. In order for a quarterback not to win it, I mean, because if you go back, the Chiefs had a run. Danny Williams had 3 touchdowns and didn't win the MVP. Mahomes won it. But if you go back, the only other, and a tight end has never won it for what it's worth. But if you go back over the past 20 years, you had guys like Edelman, Hines Ward. I'm missing 1 or 2 others. Branch, maybe. And by the way, what's interesting is that those guys were like Ward.
Larry, I think Larry Fitzgerald would have won it the one year if they would have won the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, and Brady
had a chance.
Yeah, Brady was like he won a couple MVPs. Then it was like, all right, he already won 2. They gave it to Branch. Then he already won 2. So maybe there's some Mahomes fatigue. But when Cup won it too, when those, what you have to do is you have to have like 8-9 catches over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's certainly possible for Kelsey, and he has all the narrative swirling around him. And like, so the question is like, what would someone have to do to win it for Mahomes not to win it if the Chiefs win the game? So I don't we already saw a running back get 3 touchdowns and not win. So I don't think Pacheco can win it. So
Chris Jones, a Von Miller type game.
Yeah, that's a defensive guy. A couple of defensive guys won it. Very random guys like Malcolm Jones, Dexter Jackson. Von Miller was more of a household name. You got to run into a turnover. You got to have a lower scoring game too, which I don't trust that there's not going to be enough offensive numbers here. So I'm not looking at any defensive guys, but the 2 guys on the Chiefs that I would look at are either Kelsey or Rice. Those are the 2 guys. And the argument for Rice, you're getting much better odds, and the 49ers theoretically should be able to cover Kelsey, and there's no one really else. So Rice could be that guy that ends up getting 8-9 catches, 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's the key. And then maybe they don't give it to Mahomes. So yeah, I think that those are the 2 you would look at. And then on the Niners side, yeah, I think that this could be the one of the few chances that we've seen in the past 20 years, and maybe we'll see for the next 20 years, where a running back can win it in McCaffrey. Because I think that, and for what it's worth, I also played, one of my favorite props is Elijah Mitchell under 1.5 carries You might look and say he had 4 carries last week. He came in because McCaffrey hurt his neck and then got 4 carries at the end of the game. Before then, McCaffrey had 100% of the carries in the postseason. I don't think that they're going to hand it to Mitchell here. He's not a good pass blocker. They're going to ride with McCaffrey, who got him there, and then you're going to have Deebo Samuel runs. So
Deebo's the backup running back in this game.
Yep. So you're basically betting against McCaffrey getting injured at any point. So under 1.5.
See, Stuckey, I do, and I'm not disagreeing with you on McCaffrey. He could easily have, you just ride the shit out of him. You slow down the game. He has 120 yards, maybe 3 touchdowns, and you win 28-17, and he just kind of dominated throughout the game. He would get it. I do think there's some value in Deebo, a little bit, quote unquote, a long shot, 20-1. Bright lights player last week, 8 for 90. In the Super Bowl as a rookie, he had 5 for 40, and he was kind of a no-name guy then, and he was kind of returning as well. Kyle likes to use him in the game plan several different ways. So if you, like you said, if you look at it, he gets, let's say, 7 to 8 catches and gets, 80-ish yards and a touchdown. What if he gets 3 or 4 carries and one of those carries he busts for 45 yards and a touchdown? And if one of those big touchdowns happen in the second half to swing the game, I do think there would be some momentum for him. Now, again, it's a little harder for him to do it, but I think when you look at the value, he's a guy that just could, if I tell you that he has 14 touches in the game between catches and handoffs, like him and McCaffrey could account for well over 30 between the two of them, right? Because sometimes Kittle's tough because he could just have no catches and play a big role, or just one catch for like 15 yards and block. Ayuk's kind of hit or miss. He can have really good games, but he also can do nothing. I think it's a lock that Deebo and Christian McCaffrey are getting a ton of touches, and it's just about which one of those, breaks off the big run. Which one of those in the red zone are the guys that get it through? Because one of them, to me, could easily have 2+ touchdowns. If you like Deebo, it's almost like you could parlay a couple things, like Deebo anytime touchdown plus 135, Deebo MVP, and maybe Deebo, over 60 yards catching, and kind of do it that way to get a pretty good odds on something. Probably, you'd be talking like 45-50-1.
Over rushing yards to 14, which I don't hate. This is usually when, big Super Bowl, you look back in big games, he's going to be, he's 2 weeks to get even healthier, and he looked obviously healthy in the NFC Championship.
He's just a bright lights guy. Like Christian McCaffrey, slow, steady. You always depend on him. Deebo's one of those, like, you circle a game, you're like, yeah, he's going to fucking bring it. And Kyle likes to use him.
Yeah. And in the play action, I think they're going to use him in the run game, creative ways. In the case of McCaffrey, Chiefs have struggled to cover running backs out of the backfield, but you can kind of use Samuel in that way. And then maybe
Willie Gates hurt, right?
Yeah.
So it's like that's a pretty big, missing one of your linebackers who can run.
Yeah, and there's a chance, this is an outside chance, but maybe they even throw Deebo back to for a return. So, then if you get a big return, then
they've done it this year when they had some injuries. So why wouldn't they do it in the Super Bowl?
Yep. Especially like second half, high leverage spot, and then you're not as concerned about injuries or anything. So you could see him. Ravens did that with like Ed Reed a couple times.
One issue betting on Deebo and Christian, unlike Kelsey, just is very durable in these big games. There are just moments you look over there and one of them's going like this, or one of them's getting their leg worked on. That would be the concerning thing about Mitchell under 1.5.
That's basically what I'm betting against. I'm just betting against McCaffrey not getting hurt.
Staying healthy. If he stays healthy, Kyle gives him unlimited carries in like week 4 against the fucking Atlanta Falcons. So you better believe the Super Bowl, he's going to ride these guys, not worried about injury. They can get healthy. OTAs, he doesn't care about any of that crap. I think
like 5%, 5, like 5% is a little high too, that McCaffrey gets hurt. And then, or like if he's just gassed or something, or he has to get something touched up. So that's basically what I'm betting against here, because I don't think that they're going to give Mitchell any carries. It's Deebo and McCaffrey. That's it.
One prop I kind of like: first drive 49ers field goal missed. Like if that thing's over 40, and a lot of pressure on Moody, that's 20-1. That's a little bit of a flyer there.
I don't mind that. I want to see what Shanahan does on an early 4th down with a potential long kick. There's and keep in mind that these are great kicking conditions, great punting conditions. It's, a little bit of altitude indoors, no weather. So if he has like a 48-yarder, say it's 4th and 4 from the 31 on the first drive, does Shanahan go or kick? I don't know the answer. I really don't know what he would do.
I don't know either. He's probably more inclined, even, it's crazy to say, to kick. Now, once that guy misses a field goal,
then it's done.
But I do think early on, he's wired like, Bill Parcells, 1983. Now he will change because this guy's giving him room to change. Where I think Andy's kind of proven he'll be a little more aggressive nowadays. Obviously, that's the other thing. The elephant in the room in this game is the Chiefs don't have that much to lose, right? They're just trying to be like, we now sit at the table with, the Elways and Montanas and Brady's. Like, you could argue they're already kind of there. Andy and Kelsey and Mahomes' legacy, even Chris Jones. Like, this is the pressure to me in this game is on the Niners. It's like, if not now, then when? You just avoided 2 disasters. This is easily the least, it's hard to say least talented because their defense is really good, but like, this is the worst team start to finish of a season so far of the Chiefs of the last 4 or 5 years. And it's like easy travel for you guys. Like, you're healthy. There's just no excuse. Your quarterback makes nothing. You've built up this team. That's where the pressure, like you said with Kyle, to me, Andy kind of gets get ready for like a ring around the rosy. And it's like, he's going to have some fun. If he loses it, there's not a soul that's going to be like, yeah, he's still the best coach and he's still the best quarterback and Kelsey's the best tight end we've ever seen. Where it's like,
people will give the Chiefs a ton of credit for just getting here, like just getting to the Super Bowl,
and rightfully so. On the road, 2 big dogs, and not like dogs where it's like, this is crazy. They're a dog. It's like, yeah, they're going to lose. Hell, we were talking during the season, like, yeah, the Chiefs probably a one and done playoff team, and this is kind of their Patriot moment. Like, are you really betting against us? And now we're playing it. We're still the underdog. And it's like, I don't know. Does Kyle get tight? That's what makes me nervous about betting on this game, because they're one side, it's the Super Bowl. So obviously everyone's nervous and hyped up. But there's going to be a looseness with the Chiefs of like, we're kind of playing with house money. And there is, for all these guys, like, there's a chance the Niners, even if they're good the next 5 years, you never make it back. Dan Campbell said it after the game. He's like, I looked at the guys, I said, we're not guaranteed ever to come back here. Now, the Niners have been to the championship game a bunch. But I don't know. That's the one thing that makes me nervous about the Niners. You could feel it the last couple games, right? It was like Super Bowl or bust, and then all of a sudden you're down. You're like, God damn, this is going to end like this. Happened a little with the Ravens, but at least with the Ravens, like, Lamar's under a long-term contract. Harbaugh, it's
you still don't know when you're going to get back. Dan Marino, youngest quarterback ever in NFL history to start in a Super Bowl. I think he was 23 and change. Never got back. Who would have thought Dan Marino was never getting back to the Super Bowl? You never know. And you get a longer halftime. You have a lead. Do you get tighter? Purdy, one of the things that I've liked about, and I've always liked about Purdy, and he's shown it the last 2 weeks, is that he's just been resilient, right? But this is different. It's a Super Bowl. So does he get tight? And knowing who you're playing against, which is why I went with the 49ers money line in the first half. I think this, like, what it boils down to, if you play this game 100 times,
I mean, if they're gonna win, the odds of a quarterback the last 20 years is like 60-70% at almost 2.5 to 1. He's got to be, if you like the Niners to win, putting some money on Purdy feels like a pretty good bet, right?
Yep. I think, but I go back to last week. Now, the Niners defense isn't as good as the Ravens defense, but their offense is better. And so the Chiefs will have a little bit more offensive success, because again, they literally did nothing last week in the second half. After those first 2 drives, they did nothing, but part of it is they didn't have to do much. But last week, going into that game, I was confident the Ravens were going to win because I thought they were going to run it and throw a play action. Well, they decided to do neither. But the 49ers will always do that. And I think that they'll just be able to sustain drives more consistently. And I think that'll be the difference. But the reason I bet first half instead of full game is I'm afraid of the adjustments. I'm afraid of just the nerve factor that you said, the experience of Mahomes, and then just, if you need a big kick late, I would trust Butker obviously much more than Moody. So that's why I went with first half money line. But I think that the Niners offense has the biggest advantage of any group in this game, which should ultimately decide it. But the spread's 2. Like it could obviously go either way. You're betting against the best quarterback on the planet, who all he does is win as an underdog. That's where I think the biggest edge is. Niners running, throwing the play action, where the Chiefs have been abysmal all year. Can they stick to it? I think they will, and especially early with the script that Shanahan's going to have here. I think they're going to come out with a good, sense of urgency after the past 2 weeks. So I think that they'll get out early. Little dicier late.
One group that jumped out to me is, the Niners' interior offensive line is not great, right? Their center and their 2 guards, very hit or miss. The Chiefs lost a really good guard to a pec injury for the season. Now, Mahomes, like you mentioned before we hopped on, doesn't get sacked that often. But beside Aaron Donald, I mean, you could argue 3 of the best interior pass rushers. I mean, when Armstead's healthy, obviously Hargrave and Chris Jones are just elite interior pass rushers. All of those guys are plus odds to just have basically a half a sack. And to me, I'd be a little stunned if Purdy goes sackless. And if he's going to get sacked, you would say the likelihood of it being Chris Jones up the middle feels pretty good. And the thing with Armstead, listen, Mahomes, his savviness and instincts are elite. One thing Armstead has, he's enormous. So he can just grab you like Chris Jones from really, really far away. And if he's able to smoke one of those guards, same thing, Hargrave's smaller, but he's so quick. I wonder, I'd be stunned if some of those don't hit. Especially if one of the teams down, so it's, you're talking second half, maybe down 10 plus points, 2 scores. The Chiefs, I mean, Andy will pass every play. Kyle is a little different, but even when the play action stuff, his guards can get fucking smoked.
Yeah. I also think that the Chiefs tackles are bad, and they've been bad all year. You might see Armstead kick out to end some. I mean, with how bad Chase Young has looked late, so he might get some opportunities.
Bosa 2 sacks plus 350 right now.
Yeah, I don't hate it, but yeah, it's tough because Mahomes is so good at evading sacks.
How about this one? Bosa sack and Warner 7+ tackles plus 175.
I don't mind that.
Warner's getting 10 tackles,
yeah,
right?
He's going to have a day. I actually kind of like Purdy under 2.5 sacks. I played a little bit of that. He's only gone over that 4 of 18 games. Now he's playing a defense that was top 3 in the league in sacks, but I think the Niners are going to run at a ton, throw a play action, and I don't necessarily think the Chiefs are going to blitz as much as they usually do. Purdy's been so good against the blitz. Spagnuolo will cater his game plans based on the opponent. So I don't think the Chiefs are going to be completely blitz heavy, and I think that the Niners get out in front. So I actually played under Chiefs getting 2.5 sacks, but under Purdy taking 2.5 sacks. I don't mind the Armstead one. I don't mind that Bosa Warner combo either. And then for a fun one, my overtime guy, who's like a wizard at pricing overtime, says that there's actually value in this game going to overtime, which I never would think. Everyone wants to bet these. A lot of times he's betting these yes things is, they're sucker bets, like betting there's an octopus at like 15-1. And that you go back in NFL history, it's like a 2% of games have one. So it should be like 50-1. Will there be a successful onside kick at like 12-1? It's like, first of all, you need an onside kick. And second of all, they're like 2%. Like, you can't get an onside kick. That's a terrible bet. Will there be a safety? Usually is a terrible bet. But this one, my guy says there's value in this game going to overtime at like 13-1. So I sprinkled some on it. And it would be amazing if you have the new overtime rules, which we've never seen. I was trying to get some books to post double overtime odds. I wouldn't even know how to price that, but I didn't see any out there. But yeah, I'll be rooting for overtime. So hopefully the Niners go up, the Chiefs catch them, Niners win in overtime for your sake. That's how I'm hoping the game plays out. And then McCaffrey doesn't get hurt.
A couple big picture gambling things. I don't know if you had a chance to read that article on the Jets about internally how they're a fucking disaster.
Yep.
If they're over under this, whenever that comes out in a couple months, is to me 8 or above. I think they got implosion written all over them. 40-year-old guy coming back, an offensive coordinator who's clearly not that good. I I mean, this is a little look ahead, but that's a number that I'm on. And I was a guy that like bought into him this year. I'm like, I think the Jets wild card team. I probably would have been wrong because he would have got hurt no matter what with that offensive line. But now he's a year older. He's injured. The pressure. I think them and the Bears. Anytime you go into a season with just kind of this elephant in the room about your coach, the Bears are gonna have a rookie quarterback, but with this Rodgers, the 40-year-old thing, I think they got. We've seen it so often in football history, right? This type of situation just kind of implode.
Yeah, I'm shocked they didn't I'm shocked Saleh was kept. There wasn't more. I agree. They have the potential to just everything goes wrong and then you have to blow it all up next year. So
AFC is going to be good next year again. I mean, it's going to be better, assuming people stay healthy.
Yeah, they don't get a last place schedule. Patriots have that. So yeah, I haven't dug too much in the next year, but yeah, they're certainly not a team I'm looking to back.
No, well,
let me ask you before you go. How confident, scale 1 to 10, how confident are you in the Niners?
I was more confident last Super Bowl against Coach Reed and the Chiefs. I would say I was very, very confident the last 2 weeks in the playoff games, and I got humbled fast. I mean, I thought the Packers game was so weird, but last week they were or 2 weeks ago, getting their ass kicked. I mean, that's one of the more miraculous playoff comebacks you're going to see. I mean, at that price, or excuse me, at that, the score,
all the bounces that went their way. Yeah.
Yeah. And even Shanahan said, like, one huge variable playing Dan Campbell is like, he'll go for it. And if you stop him, it's a huge swing in the game. And that happened definitely when he decided not to kick the field goal. And they couldn't have, the fumble with Gibbs, the following drive, it enabled them to come back like that. But it's weird, right? Because you look at the Packers, Aaron Jones, when healthy, is a top 5 back. Gibbs is easily one of the most explosive backs. So their run defense is a little off. Well, they're playing Aaron Jones is an elite player, and Gibbs is like one of the fastest players in the league. Like you said, the Chiefs' running game, it's not really.
It's more like power. Yeah.
Yeah. Are they going to bust like 40-yard runs? Like that was part of it.
They're not busting.
Like demoralizing these runs that were long. Yeah. Like Pacheco's more likely to get like 6 yards, but not. Is he going to have like back-to-back 23-yard carries? Probably not.
Yeah, so and the Packers and Lions have good tackles, and they can run outside zone, and that's where the 49ers are really weak, running outside on them.
Maybe the Chiefs are a better matchup for them than the Ravens would be if they ran it.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Chiefs run game is all year. It's like middle of the pack. It's good. It's not great, and the way that they run it, I think, is a decent matchup. Now, like, can Chase Young, hold the edge, and they're probably going to attack him in the run game. So I'm curious to see like the rotations. Like, do you end up kicking Armstead out there? Use more Kinlaw, so they might attack Young. That's a guy I'd be worried about. But the Chiefs run offense, I wouldn't be as worried about as what we saw against the Lions and the Packers. I'd just be more worried about Mahomes' magic, basically. And now their offense is better. They've cut out like all the fat, all the guys who were dropping balls, and they're really just focused on a couple guys. But that also makes it easier to try and game plan for when you have 2 weeks to prepare. So, it's just sometimes Kyle Hamilton gave up his first touchdown of the year. He was blanketed all over Kelsey. Mahomes he could have went out there and handed it to him. It was an absolute BB right into his hands in the corner of the end zone. Like, there's nothing you can do about that.
The thing that makes me nervous is not even the players as much as the coaches, because these coaching staffs, I mean, this is, Kyle, obviously Andy's currently probably the best coach in the league. Kyle's a top 5 guy, but we talked about it earlier. Like, Andy's just so free now. Once he won the one, it was like he struck oil. Then he won the second, and now it's like, and he's got this defensive coordinator that they go back so long that he never has to worry about leaving, who's obviously one of the elite big game defensive coordinators of like our lifetime. He's like the Belichick version of what Parcells had. I mean, he's fucking dominant. He's beat everyone that's mattered in playoff games and obviously in the Super Bowl. So
that's a huge concern of mine in the second half. Like, I don't think that there's many adjustments that the Niners can make.
Well, they can blitz. They can blitz linebackers, but then it opens the middle of the field.
Right? Yeah, you don't want to really blitz Mahomes. So like, yeah, I mean that you could do that, but I don't think you would want to do that. Mahomes is like the greatest of all time against the blitz. So the second half adjustments definitely would favor Spagnuolo. Over almost any coordinator. So that I'd definitely be worried about that. And yeah, you're right. The Chiefs, they can not only play like they were the underdog card, like Andy Reid mentioned that, like, as you meant, they said, hey, we're the underdog. I'm sure he's playing that card, but they also just play looser. Yeah, I'm so curious to see how the Niners handle that if they have the lead in the second half. But I ultimately think it'll be a good game, competitive throughout.
To me, it's like this would be, as time goes on, you'd be like, if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I lost to Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes twice in Super Bowls. It doesn't sound that crazy. Just like Pete Carroll going, well, I lost to Belichick and Brady in a Super Bowl. Well, then you examine it. It's like, well, you were favored twice. I don't know how this game's going to play out, but you had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. So there is context behind it. I don't want to say you're the big favorite in this game, but I think clearly, I don't know. I mean, most people would agree that they have the better team top to bottom. So it's like, Kyle, if you're not going to win this time, are you going to be, now Andy was this way for a long time, and it took him getting Patrick Mahomes to just completely throw that narrative in the trash. Well, if he can't win with this version of his team, like this team's never going to be better, probably. Maybe next year, but like the windows now definitely never have a better opportunity.
Well, especially because the NFC was weak this year. And, these things go in ebbs and flows. Like, look at the NFC North. Right, the Bears have the potential. You saw their defense getting better. If they get a quarterback, the Lions are in position to be good for a while. The Packers are in position to be good for a while. The Vikings, they've made a lot of progress this year. They're going to have a quarterback, and they didn't have a quarterback this year. It's like that one division.
The Rams are going to keep getting better. They got a bunch of young players.
Yeah, so like the NFC this year was just ripe for the picking. So that adds to it.
Eagles imploded.
Yeah. So yeah, like that, their opportunity, you never know when you're not going to get back. So yeah, there'll definitely be questions for Shanahan, warranted or not, and then his legacy will depend on if he doesn't win this game, does he win? Does he get it back and win one again? If not, yeah, even though he lost to Mahomes and Reid, there still will be questions, and this is as good as an opportunity as you're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, I think the good thing for him is clearly like he's a football guy. Like he's not looking to go to the media or whatever. Like if you and Andy was the same way early on in his career, but he only got to the game once, right? If I would have told you he would have got to the game multiple times with that defense, who knows? Maybe they get one. You get to the game multiple times. Like look back at Marv Levy. What's the statistical chances if you just ran like in the history of the league, you go to 4 straight Super Bowls and not win one? It's probably very slim, right?
Amazing.
I mean, I think they're gonna win, but shit, I don't have that much confidence on putting money on them.
Yeah.
Okay, Stuckey. Well, it's been a hell of a run. It's been a fun season. We've basically seen it all this year. It's hard to get much better, and we'll be back at it. I guess next year. So
take it easy, it's a good season.
Enjoy the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it was a good season. Let's close it strong, and good luck to your Niners. I wish they were playing the Ravens, but go Niners, especially first half. But enjoy the game, everybody, and good luck on your bets.